Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, and I would like to give a very, very warm welcome to Rosie Bescoby. Did I get that right?
You did get that right. Well done.
You owe me £10. And Emma Gale as well. How are you both?
All right, thank you.
Thank
Fantastic.
you very much for joining us. We're going to touch on a few interesting topics today for people who are interested in dog training and behavior. I feel like we've got loads of things that we can talk about, so I'm very excited to pick your brains. First up, well, let's go with you, Emma, first, if that's okay. Sorry, Rosie. Can you talk a little bit about what it is you do and why you are here today?
Absolutely. So I work for CEVA Animal Health, who are the makers of the lovely Adaptil. And my background is in animal behaviour and welfare. So I have a degree and a deep passion and a need to understand animals, and this deep kind of like love of animals, and I want to do better for their welfare. So currently I work for CEVA, for Adaptil, and I support veterinary practices across the UK with any questions or any training needs that they may have around Adaptil and Feliway.
Fabulous, fabulous. I think Adaptil, it's one of those products that I always hear about it. I have used it before myself. Not myself, for myself, but
doing it wrong, Steve.
Yeah, it's never worked for me. But I think there's a bit of kind of not confusion about what it is, but maybe you can talk a little touch about what it is that Adaptil does and how it can be used.
For sure. Okay, so Adaptil is a synthetic copy of a naturally occurring pheromone that dogs use to communicate with one another. So the actual specific pheromone that is in Adaptil is the dog appeasing pheromone. And this pheromone is secreted by the mother, by the sort of the bitch, a couple of days after birth. And the function of that pheromone is to sort of reassure and appease and bond the puppies and the mum. So it's a comforting, calming, reassuring message. And I like to think of it as like a bit of a mummy cuddle.
Oh, that's nice. I like
Going
that.
back to Steve talking about he's tried using it before, he was in Crete last year, and there was a family of dogs that were just born on the streets just outside where he was staying. And I think if he had had access to some of it then, he might have thrown a bit of it on to go and meet those puppies.
I would have done.
We're all up
yeah.
next to them, Steve, like a little creep.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, all dogs, no matter how old, they can be right the way through from puppyhood, right the way to senior dogs, can benefit from receiving that calming, you know, sort of reassuring chemical message. So it's a way that dogs, you know, communicate between one another.
And that synthetic pheromone can be delivered in a number of ways. You have a I'm going to, you're probably sick of people saying this, but it's like a Glade plug-in type sort of way of delivering it. A diffuser, I think, is the technical term. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. So we have a plug-in diffuser which lasts about a month.
Yep.
We also have the fabulous Adaptil collars. I love the collar because it's on the dog everywhere they go.
Yeah.
So, you know, it helps to reassure them when they're out and about, or, you know, when they're at home even. And it doesn't matter how big your house is, you know, because the collar's always on the dog.
Yeah.
Then we also have an Adaptil transport spray, which you can use locally, perhaps if your dog is worried about travel, or you can use it if you're building a den around fireworks time, so you can leave that calming and reassuring message in any location to help reassure your pet that all is well.
Fabulous.
So Rosie, you're the behaviour advisor for Adaptil, and I'm guessing an advocate. When is it that you're recommending clients to use this?
So I see only really behaviour cases. The only other sort of preventative cases I see are new puppies and helping owners just settle them in. But I do that on a one-to-one basis, so I don't run classes or anything anymore. But basically it's something that I'm a massive fan of, and I think a lot of my clients would agree, as right through from preventative, kind of supporting that new puppy as they transfer into that new home, which we think of as a preventative, but actually that's a massive step for little puppies. And I think owners often underestimate what a massive step that is. Right through to, you know, behaviour cases. I see it as a really great product, as a really great supportive product. So helping dogs with any kind of changes in their lives, or just like Emma said, when you just feel like they might just need that bit of an equivalent of a mum's hug.
Yeah.
Really like that analogy. I'm stealing that one. So I'm and the other thing I really like about it is backed up by really good peer-reviewed research, and there's no harm in trying it either. Like there's no negative side effects to it. I mean, apart from owners spending money on it, but I think, does it not come with a guarantee as well, Emma, that there's a money back guarantee?
It does. Good point. So all of our behaviour products come with a 30-day money back guarantee. So if an owner feels that they haven't, for example, you know, got the full effect that they were hoping for, then they can return to their veterinary practice where they've bought the product from, and the practice will then get in contact with our customer services team, who will speak to the owner direct, give advice where necessary, and if you know, if they're not happy, then certainly there's the benefit of the guarantee. So you can't go wrong when you're investing in this product. There's no harm you can be done, and you've got that money back guarantee.
It's a pretty good, it's a pretty good price point anyway, isn't it? I mean, it's not a break the banker. And I know I would probably say a lot of the clients that I have advised it as part of a behaviour model, you know, just to give this a go until I can see you. They've maybe not seen anything, you know, amazingly different to start with. But when they reach that 4 to 6 weeks where the collar's going to be wearing off, or the diffuser's getting empty, things start reverting, and they're like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? It's that
as well. I regularly get feedback that they don't think it was doing much, but when it starts wearing off, they realise it was. So I wonder if it's a very gradual sort of, that's exactly what I would report as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think maybe it's expectations, isn't it, of wanting to see a difference, but actually it's working nicely at the background with cuddles.
I think that's so relevant, actually, because if you think about, you know, there's no one size fits all in the world, is there? And even for dogs that are severe behaviour cases that might require, you know, anxiolytics, prescription medications, we'd be looking at a 2 to 4 week sort of loading dose before we start to see the effect of that strong prescription medication. So I think it's fair to say that you've got to give it at least a month. You know, I always recommend 2 to get the full effect of the product, because, you know, I think that anxiety that might be up here, might be sort of sky high, it's going to take time to come down potentially. It's a complementary therapy. So I think it's only fair to give it at least a month, you know, before we assess how is that pet doing. And I've seen it myself with my own dog so many times, you know, little phases in life, things that might have stressed her out. Or when she was a puppy, you know, she was getting stressy whenever there was a barrier between her and I could just tell when that collar was running out, because she'd be whinging at the barrier, you know, brand new collar on, she's relaxed as anything, but toward the end of it, she was definitely showing more signs of coping less well then.
I can really relate to that. I like what you said there about the sort of change, useful for change in the environment, because we've just moved house. We've moved to Wales recently, and I'm using the human equivalent of Adaptil, which is whiskey. Have you heard of that?
Not in a
That's not
diffuser
good
though,
for
mate.
dogs.
Steve, is that clinically proven?
I think so, yeah. I'm a good test subject. I think it's worked wonders, I'll be honest.
Yeah, my sample size of 1.
It was making me so Peaches, unfortunately, since we've been here, has already had to have a vet visit, and it was making me think that that might have been a nice time to pop one on her, like, you know, because I can only provide so much comfort, and perhaps that might have been a little bit more comfort. And even if it wasn't, you know, it's not going to make her feel any worse. So yeah, that would have been a time when I might have used one. Good to know.
Yeah.
Have you got an idea of, have you got a story you can recall, not a story, a case, and when it went well? I know, Emma, you talked about your own dog there. Rosie, when you've introduced it to clients before.
Yeah, so again, it's one of those things that I can't actually think of any that have started using it and gone, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's always been that they've carried on using it when it's worn off, and they've realized that it, and the way I describe it is, it even, like we've just said, even if it's just bringing them down that little notch. So it's a puzzle, isn't it? All behavior modification and
yeah,
you know, our animals is a puzzle. And so even if that's one piece to the puzzle, if we're supporting the dog with and the owner with lots of pieces of the puzzle, eventually, you know, the notches come right down and show a significant improvement. So that's the way I describe it to owners as well, that even if it's just bringing them down a little notch, it might not, you know, it's not going to blow anyone's mind on its own. It's not a silver bullet, you know, it's unless we're dealing with whatever the triggers are related to the dog as well, then it's not going to improve things, but it's going to contribute to the dog's ability to learn good stuff. Obviously they're learning all the time, whether it's bad stuff or good stuff, but it helps make them relaxed enough to learn the stuff that we want them to learn, I guess. And you know, they're less in fight or flight mode, they're less in survival mode if we can just bring them down a little notch and get them more into training mode and being able to teach them and what, you know, the behaviors that we want from them.
I like the puzzle analogy. It's a good one.
Yeah,
it works really well. Yeah,
and
I like
some dogs are a 1,000-piece puzzle and others are a puzzle. So yeah.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about you, Rosie, for a second. So how did you get into the wonderful world of behaviour?
Oh gosh, so I went to Bristol Uni and did zoology and psychology as my undergrad many years ago now, but I did it with no vision of the future. Like, I just chose 2 subjects that I was passionate about at, you know, kind of A-level stage, and went through the degree thinking, I haven't a clue what I'm doing with my life, as I'm sure many undergrads can relate to. And in my final year, I started researching, like, what am I going to do, and came across that I didn't even know it was a career option back then. There wasn't really roots to it. Came across that being a behaviourist was a potential, and then was led to believe you had to be a vet first. So I kind of parked that idea. And I then initially got into wild animal behaviour. So I started doing kind of conservation wild animal projects abroad, and got quite homesick and thought, I don't want to spend my life being homesick abroad. So then did a little bit more research and found out about a postgraduate course that was at Southampton at the time, specifically in companion animal behaviour. So came back from Africa and did that part-time over a few years, as well as doing lots of, by this point, I realised I needed to get a lot of experience under my belt as well, relevant experience. So volunteering at rescues and working evening shifts at a veterinary hospital, and yeah, did my diploma, and then got into training as well. So yeah, shadowing training. I'm trying to think back now, it's a long time ago. Shadowing training classes, all of that stuff, and then set up my own training classes and built it up from there.
And you said you don't do classes so much anymore, you just do things on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, so it's kind of gradually worked that way, I suppose. So I did do a lot of puppy and adolescent classes, and then I stopped doing them, and I can't really remember why, whether it was just workload or venue issues, or I can't remember. But I started doing one-to-one training and behaviour modification, and then I found that quite tricky, because unless you like basically do your history taking first, I think you turn up to a lot of one-to-ones and you kind of have to go, hold on, we need to park this because there's a lot more going on than your dog just not coming back when you call it. And there's probably a bigger reason why your dog's not coming back to you when you call it than just because it likes rabbits.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think by that point my behavior workload had got so significant, I just sort of focused on that. But I really also like the preventative stuff, so I wanted to keep doing my new puppies and kittens to our household. And the other preventative stuff I'm really passionate about is new babies into a house with dogs. So yeah, just I do those, and those can be done really nice and easy by remote consult as well. So yeah. Yeah, quite passionate about keeping the preventative stuff going, because the other thing I find is that with puppy classes, and I particularly find this at some vet practices where a member of staff really enjoys working with puppies. I mean, who doesn't? And so they'll set up some sort of puppy class, however they call it, puppy socialization or puppy parties or whatever. And I think it's seen as a really fun and easy thing to do. And it is a fun thing to do, but I don't think it's an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do to get. And actually, I'll drop it in now, Nat, why not? The Canine Behaviour in Mind book that Nat and I both contributed to.
Well, it's going to be me or you. So
yeah, well, exactly.
Thanks for taking that one.
Hang on a minute. You've been in a book, Nat, really?
Yeah, did I not mention it every time?
We've never featured it on the podcast, which is absolutely bizarre. Every time it comes up, I'm like, this is our podcast about
dog I know, because I want to
it.
get everyone together like the Avengers. I want all the chapter authors to come together, and but it will be a 10-hour podcast.
Yeah,
we'll never shut up.
You know how Steve likes a long form.
I do.
Nearly called you Stove then as well.
Anyway, sorry, you were
I won't go into it too much detail, but my chapter on that was on teaching humans to teach owners. And so part of what I really liked about writing that chapter is going into how puppy classes are really important to get right, because then we're out of a job, hopefully, that's the most important part. So yeah, I wanted to keep my foot in the door with puppies is a really long way round of saying that, because it's super rewarding. And I think that the more experienced and the more behaviorally savvy you are, the better as well in terms of prevention stuff.
Yeah, I agree more about the puppies not being easy as well, like the classes and things like that, getting that right. Yeah, absolutely. Running a good puppy class with. Yeah, and also like the other thing about puppy classes is I think you need really good venue, don't you? You need so much space. You need not a huge amount of puppies for the space, which probably isn't that cost effective for a lot of places. But anyway, I'm digressing.
When me and Steve met back in the dark ages, and we were first training, I think that the setup was actually quite a good one, because we worked for a local training school. It was all outdoors. And we were seen as like the place to go on a Saturday morning with your puppy. Like, you got a puppy, you went to puppy romp. And I think sometimes it was chaotic. Usually Steve had the chaotic group, actually, because he'd always draw the short straw, and he'd be with the older puppies in the big paddock, and he'd have to actually like do stuff with the dogs to keep them from all.
Just so you know, that continued when we run our business together as well. I was like, there you go.
Yeah, well done. You did good
delegation there.
I'll stay with the 8-week-old gerbil puppies that can't even move. You go and play with them. Yeah, but we had. Sometimes it was chaos, but it was organised chaos. Sometimes we had 50, am I exaggerating if I say 50 puppies here, Steve?
No, I counted in 60 odd cars one week. Yeah,
but what that meant is we had 6 groups, and during the 45 minutes, puppies were graduating and being demoted all the time. So there was always like appropriate playmates for them, or appropriate snooze mates for them. And I don't really know what the perfect way of doing it is, because I kind of think it might be having some puppies on the bench, like, no, this one's tired now, this one can come in. And because I know when you guys at Goodall did puppy conversations, the trickiest class sometimes is when, you know, 2 puppies turn up and then they're not compatible, because you're like, okay, well, this is 2 1-to-1s now.
That's why we had some darling older dogs come along that were always on hand. Yeah.
Well, this kind of speaks back to what you were saying, Rosie, because I think and the chapter that you wrote in that book, because a lot of that was about managing the expectations of the people that were coming. So I think a lot of people, whether it's at a vet or a training school like Nat was talking about, or even to our classes, a lot of people expect a puppy romp, puppy party, puppy whatever. That we called it puppy conversations for that reason. We never wanted to call it a puppy party, because that paints a picture of like, woohoo, I'm going to come here and let my dog go, and then hopefully they'll be tired for the rest of the day. And I found that if we were very clear on what to expect, you know, there will be some off-lead time with another dog if appropriate, but there will be some time when we're sitting down, we're doing some calm stuff. I found that worked really, really well to head off those sort of expectations at the pass a little bit.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think I guess the biggest issue with like vet puppy parties, that kind of thing, is the space, because most vet puppy parties happen in small enclosed areas where there's not a lot of space, and all you've got to do is get one
as well in the vet practice. That's got to be clean and hygienic, but slippery flooring is another thing that gives me the willies.
With you there. I'm with you there. So it's a tough thing to get right. It's done for a really, really nice reason, and everyone, you know, it's one of those things everyone wants to tick the box of as well, isn't it? It's sort of some sort of puppy party romp, whatever. So it is an interesting one. It's interesting to get right. It's so important to get right. And it's an easy buy-in for puppy guardians, isn't it? Like classes are. It's like, get a puppy, tick, go to vets, tick, go to vet puppy party, tick, and then hopefully go and do classes after that. It's quite easy to get people to do it, which is why it's so important. But it is really nice that there's always someone at the vets who's really enthusiastic about doing that. They're starting to get their dip toes into behavior and training and things like that. I find that often.
I completely agree. I feel like every branch needs one of those people in it, don't they?
Yeah, and they usually do have, don't they? They usually do have. Definitely.
It's usually a vet nurse, actually, isn't it, who's got an interest in behavior. And I know some of my cases where we're working on maybe just more generalized handling, but specifically around kind of husbandry, grooming, vaccinations, and maybe we've got some jabs coming up that we're prepping for. The progress just wouldn't have been made without one of the members of the practice staff, you know, being on board and being happy to, you know, dish out cheese like it's going out of fashion. Or, you know, see the dog outside and just, you know, be a bit of a familiar face. And I guess that's where Adaptil can come back in as well, can't it? As an extra to that toolkit, but also the collaborative working, which, you know, we're always banging on about at PACT. And
that's another thing I often say to my owners is it takes a village, doesn't it? Whether it's a dog with separation issues and you need you need to rope in friends, family, borrow my doggy if I'm allowed to drop things, name it, or equivalent, and
anyone on the street.
But it takes a village regardless of what your you know challenge is with your dog and your puppy. And like you said, the vets are always there. We've got to include them from the start anyway, and check that all the dogs we're working with are fitting well, and we're not trying to change the behavior of a dog that's showing a certain behavior because it's medically not well. So it worked from beginning to end. I think
I listened to you on a podcast the other day, Rosie, and I heard that you have a really good working relationship with the vets in Bristol. Is that still where you're based?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm so lucky around here.
How did that happen? Let's share.
What did you do? What did you give them? Why?
Well, I'll give you I'll give you the honest truth. I've never divulged to anyone. I am married to a vet, but he's a horse vet, so he's not much use to me. Not much use to me in
That's
that.
got to help, right? So you need to go off and marry a vet. Okay,
well,
thanks,
exactly. I did meet him when he was still at uni, and so a lot of his friends and we all went to uni in Bristol. So a handful of them are still in Bristol, and that has been helpful. But also the other benefit has been that within Bristol, there's a good few clinical behaviourists. And I think we're quite lucky that as an area, we've got a really good amount in the area. And
oh
so,
my God, Bristol's like the mecca
I
for,
know.
you know, I think I could adopt 500 troublesome dogs with issues, move to Bristol,
It'll be
see
fine.
a different person every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly. But I think because of that, like, we've all just been there to support the vet practices, and they've grown up with us all here. So it's just it is what it is around here. And that's just really nice, because I feel like all of us clinical behaviourists and all the vets in the vet practices all just know each other. And if one of us is full, the vet, you know, the vet's just, yeah, that, I think it's just luck, really. But apart from, you know, a bit of uni socializing thrown in for good measure.
Yeah, networking, the slight kind of hippie atmosphere that Bristol brings.
Yeah, the alphabet pub crawl probably helped, you know.
Yeah. Do you have what's it like in Bristol? Are the private practices managing to stay afloat, or have you been, because everywhere else it's like brand city, and you know, the big pharma are sort of coming in. Do you find
that's definitely happened? But I feel like even where the corporates have taken over, they all have little branches dotted around the city, and each branch does kind of run as a little independent way. So the staff know the client, you know, that. But yeah, there's certainly a few new independents have sprung up, and they're busier than ever. They are so busy. But yeah, I still, you know, even the ones that are corporately owned the vets are still there long term. That's
good. You still have that community feel.
Definitely.
I think
Emma, how do you get on with, because you mentioned earlier on that you do a lot with vets and talking about Adaptil in your training, but am I right in thinking you also used to work in a vet? So has that helped you with your communication with them?
Oh, well, I haven't actually worked in a vet practice, but I used to be a rep on the road. So I used to go into vet practice every day, and, you know, do training, and I'd mostly try and talk about behaviour. I think Bristol, we're really lucky because we've got Bristol Vet School, where we used to have a really, you know, fantastic course on behaviour as well. So I think behaviour is forefront of a lot of people's minds. A lot of graduates from there would have, you know, spread out into the local practices, and, you know, they take that with them. So for me, certainly, you know, I used to, rather than working per se in a vet practice, I'm not clinically trained. I would visit practices all over the UK. My area was sort of central England, and I used to go talk behaviour whenever I could find an ear, really, and find somebody who had a passion for it just like me.
So have you got any tips for anyone listening and ourselves, because we've just moved and we need to make relationships with our vets? What have you got any advice for how to start that, and then where to go from there?
So do you mean in terms of how to find a practice that is clued up on behaviour?
Well, that would be wonderful. But maybe how to start conversations when we're not sure what they're like yet. It's early days. We've just moved into the area, or you've just started training, and you want to sort of put a few feelers out there so that people maybe are recommending you to their clients.
Yeah, sure. So I think looking on your local vet's website, you can get a lot of information, you know, on individual people, or meet the team is a great place to start on your local vet's website, and see if they have anyone there with, you know, an interest in behaviour or training or further qualification in that. Obviously, popping in and sussing it out for yourself if you can is also a great way to get a feel for that practice, to get a feel for the vibe. You know, how busy is it, and do they have designated dog and cat separate areas? You know, because lots of dog owners will also have cats, and having a separate cat area, to respect the cat's needs in practice, is also really important. So I think that's a great place to start. It's to save you a bit of legwork, is just check out their website. You could also look for, in terms of training, you could do a quick Google for, looking on the APBC website for any behaviourists, but also looking for perhaps your puppy school representatives in the area, because they run really great puppy training classes as well. So that might be a nice place to start, to find the support that you're looking for.
And obviously the PACT register.
Of course, on the PACT register.
Just saying.
We're going to speak with Gwen.
We are. I can't wait. That her book arrived.
Yeah, she's just revised a copy of the puppy book, which I can't remember what the puppy book's called off the top of my head now. But it looks really good. The book arrived the other day, so it'd be interesting because puppy school have been going for a while now.
Yeah, it has. Actually, CEVA and Adaptil have worked with Gwen in the past, and for practices who want to start picking up running a good puppy class, a socialization class, we do have some really fantastic resources available for staff members who want to get involved in that. It can be really daunting to start off with. So finding out who their practice rep is, and just dropping them an email to connect with, from that, we can provide them with an actual guide on how to run a good puppy class that Gwen Bailey has helped with in the past. So yeah, it's a really nice support to use.
The ABTC they've got a vet advocate scheme now as well, haven't they? So that I'm hoping that's going to really take off.
And the other thing I was going to say is the Dogs Trust have now got a dog-friendly clinic scheme. The cat International Cat Care have got one that's vet practices are very familiar with, but Dogs Trust have just started up the dog scheme one. So I know there's one in Bristol that was the first one to have that scheme. So maybe look out for that, guys, as well. But the other thing I would say, I'm sure you've done this already, is follow all their social media channels, because you get a really good gist of practices that put videos on of removing grass seeds from the dog, and whether the dog's like got a bit of sedation and lying there nice and calm while they remove a seed, or it's like 10 people get down while they remove a seed. You can get a bit of an idea from but it's hard, isn't it? Because the other thing I would say from the vet's perspective is, and my husband would probably say this, is that they're so busy all the time now. Like back in my day, they loved people popping in with cakes, and they'd have time to have a chat. I think now they'd be like, oh God, no, I can't have time. So it's finding low pressure ways, isn't it? I'm talking from a trainer behaviourist. Now. It's finding really low pressure ways of just saying, hi, we're here, and let me know if you want me to do a free staff talk or free client talk. That's another way I think I got into lots of practices, and they take you up on it loads. Giving some sort of value.
I've seen people as well do like little info sheets or something to give out with puppy packs or something along those lines. I think it's a really, really nice idea as well.
Something that's going to take workload off the staff, so they don't have to rewrite their info packs. Exactly that.
That's really good advice, because they are all incredibly big. We've been really lucky to talk to some amazing vets recently. We've had Christopher Little on, we've had Kat the vet on as well, and there are some wonderful vets out there, but they are all, I think, working pretty hard at the moment, to say the least. So it must
I mean, I've found it, I'm sure you have as well, Rosie, even just trying to have a quick catch up, like say you've got a case that's on meds, or you would like to see if the vet would find it appropriate for meds or investigations. You do end up playing phone tennis quite a lot, and I think just being aware of that and saying, have you got an email address? Shall I put some notes down in an email that you can read while you're eating your sandwich in the 10 minutes of lunch that you get? Rather than having to speak to me on the phone. But
at 7:30 at night.
Exactly. Lunch at 7:30. Exactly. Whilst you're also, I don't know, spaying a cat or something. But I love all the vet initiatives in terms of the practice management. I think it's great because from what I've heard from my friends that work in practice, sometimes they feel like when they're trying to get the rest of the team on board, bear in mind what we've just said about everyone being busy, it's maybe seen as just another thing, you know, either using or advising products like Adaptil, or having a special cat area, or, you know, not rushing the dogs through it, or seeing clients in the car park. Being kind of behaviourally aware can be an extra stress, I think. And some team members just aren't inclined that way. So having a badge and a programme that does the kind of heavy lifting, it then means it's not, you know, Nat being annoying again, banging on about lipping or something. So yeah, I think the more initiatives like that, the better, because they can then be shared within the practice, and it all just filters down and out, doesn't it? And ultimately improves animal welfare, which is what we're all about.
Yeah, and again, I think a tick sheet, like this is what you need to do to achieve that standard, makes it easy, doesn't it? They don't have to have someone thinking, well, what exactly do we need to do, and how do I get everyone on board? Like you said, if it's just an agreed thing that we're going to work towards this, and this is what we need to achieve, and someone's in charge of that. It's a bit like the practice standard scheme that vet practices can voluntarily do as well, but this is a bit more specific to the behaviour side of it. So yeah, I think that's hopefully more practices will take up on it, but again, it takes time to put it all together. But I think it's achievable, you know, and I think more and more, like Emma was saying about Bristol Vet School, I think the veterinary curriculum now includes a little bit more behaviour than it used to, and so they're coming out hopefully with a bit more behavioural awareness, even if they're totally uninterested in behaviour, which a lot of vets would admit to. But ultimately, again, the other thing is it makes their lives easier, doesn't it? And things can be done. Okay, you might need to get them into the room slower, but actually if you can then do the job rather than be everyone getting stressed out for half an hour and having to resign that you've not been able to do it, is no good for anyone. So
that kind of human nature of wanting to get things done quick kind of goes. I mean, we all can suffer from that. I mean, I've been through the gambit of vets, right from the most amazing vets that took all the time in the world that I wanted to take home with me and keep in a little cupboard, to people that have been very well, the other end of the scale, let's just put it that way. That also kind of circles back to what Emma was saying as well. I think with Adaptil, Emma, you know, you're looking at a long period of time for it to start working. You also alluded, Rosie, to the fact about medication takes that time to load up, that sort of thing as well. And I think a lot of guardians are always looking for like a quick, please, I want to plug this in, and tomorrow I would like a relaxed dog and I can go out for 6 hours, please. Do you think that's something that you battle against, you know, with Adaptil a lot, trying to get people to buy into using it for the time required?
Do you know, that's really interesting, Steve, because sometimes it can be an overnight thing. I think one of the challenges that we have with behaviour cases is that when the owner finally gets round to talking about the behaviour problem with, you know, their vet or their friend or you know, sort of someone who else has had an experience with it, that behaviour has usually been going on a long time. And the earlier that we can get help with any situation, the quicker the resolution and the more complete that resolution is going to be. So, for example, I always love to talk about my dog. You might see this a bit, but school holidays, daughter home from school, dog, she really likes to have me all to herself. It was very, very hot. You know, I couldn't take her out for a lunchtime walk. And about 3 or 4 days of this, she was panting in the evening, stressing out. And I thought, what on earth is wrong with this dog? And I'm ashamed to say it took me 3 or 4 days to think, oh, I might pop a collar on her. I put a collar on her. And overnight, literally, it was absolutely transformed. The following day, she was so much more relaxed. The panting had stopped. She was playing again. She'd gone to hiding underneath the sofa with big wide eyes. And I knew something wasn't right. you'd think that I would have known a little bit sooner than 4 days of it, wouldn't you? It's
Well,
like,
to be honest,
like mechanics and cars.
if you can get it wrong, then it puts everyone else at ease, really, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, and it takes a while for these things to compute sometimes.
You're too involved, aren't you? You're just
too
involved.
close to
Yeah.
it.
But the point there being that, you know, it takes people a while to actually address that issue and to feel like, you know, or we might have noticed it, but whose responsibility is it in the family to do anything about it is then the next step. You know, whose duty of care is this to actually take action and help that pet? And where do we start? And I think that's one of the challenges that we have with anything behavior related is owners. Well, we all want a quick fix for everything, don't we? Not just owners. We want an overnight fix. In the example I gave with my dog, where I took quick action, I had a really quick resolution. You know, but the longer that goes on for, it's reasonable to think that the longer that, you know, we're going to need to counter, you know, condition almost that behavior. Yeah. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
No, it does.
Yeah,
and I think
it
also gives a really nice example of how incremental behavior modification, or just, you know, actions on the back of observations need to be. Because I've also been to clients where I maybe haven't been able to see them for a little while, so I've said, oh, you know, buy X, Y, and Z, Adaptil maybe being one of them. And then you go around and see them and you say, well, how are you getting on with that? And they're like, oh yeah, we bought it and it's there in the box. It's like, well, the next step is open it and put it on the dog. So yeah, I think, you know, everything, there's always a barrier, isn't there? And our job as a part of a sort of paraprofessional team is bringing those barriers down and making it as easy as possible for common sense to prevail, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, alongside the Adaptil collar and the Adaptil plugins, you know, we do have the Adaptil chew, which is a faster acting way of calming dogs. So it's not actually a pheromone based product. It is, you know, a colostrum and L-tryptophan based product. So it's something that owners can give half an hour before a stressful event, and that can be used alongside, you know, Adaptil collars or the plugin, etc., for that faster action in calming. So it will last for about 4 hours, you know, and it's a super tasty chew. It smells like OXO cubes. If you can, if you like the smell of an OXO cube, you'll love the smell of the Adaptil. It's not for everyone.
I used to eat OXO cubes.
Yeah, I'm guilty as charged with a stock cube. I can't help eat a bit before I put it in.
I don't think we'll be tucking into the colostrum though, Corinne. What do you reckon?
I don't know.
Leave it for the dogs. So, hearing about all these lovely products then, Emma, because you joined us, you had a little stand, didn't you, at DogX last year?
I did.
Where all of our lovely trainers and other delegates and students that were coming along to Winchester came and spoke to you. You were always busy when I went past, which was good. You were on the way to coffee, weren't you, and cake? So that was a good spot.
Well, I did ask for strategic, you know, sort of place to stand, and I knew that they couldn't get past me.
Exactly, yeah.
They couldn't miss me on their way to the cake, so I was like, right, plop me there. I'll sweep up the crumbs afterwards.
Exactly. So, CEVA very kindly sort of supporting DogX this year, and you are coming again, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And we are also sort of on the plug for selling the last few seats. So can you give us the big blockbuster hitting, it was amazing, coming this October? Did you have a good time? That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I had a fabulous time, because there's nothing quite like being in the room with 200 people who are completely on your page.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the speakers. They were so bang on with their messaging, you know, their new information. I absolutely loved the awareness of neurodivergence within the group of people, and the request about, do we need lighting? Is everybody okay? Are we all right with heat? You know, I think behavior people are quite sensitive people, and I think that just kind of care from the minute you walk through the door, and everybody just being so engaged and warm and talkative, and you know, just being there in that learning environment. I took so many notes. Took so many but it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful, and to meet you all as well, you know, face to face was fantastic. So please come to DogX. I will be there again this year. We will be you know, furnishing people with some goodies from CEVA, and there'll be some competition prizes up for grabs as well. So, you know, the best, I don't know, break dance or whatever get going.
We've got to have a think, because we did bingo last year, didn't we? Were you in the room? I can't remember if you were setting up your stand or if you were there when you did bingo. See what you're missing out on, Rosie, here. Bingo. It was amazing.
Hang on a minute. That bingo took a lot of planning.
It really did.
Arguably too much planning.
I played my own game about 20 times before I then was like, it's ready for 200 people to play now.
I really enjoyed what we did the first year, the rock, paper, scissors.
That took no planning. Can we go back to that, please?
Let's go back to that. So just clarifying, Nat, have we got Emma's address to send the check to, or are we...
I'll sort out the bribe money. That's fine.
Well, I'm going to throw a bit of a controversial question out there, because I like to be a little. Well, it's not that controversial in fairness. I'm sure you've got a great answer for it. So whenever this could be for Emma and Rosie. Let's go Rosie first. How do you pick apart then? So if you're giving like something like Adaptil or anything else along those lines as a behaviourist, how do you pick apart? Because, you know, I guess you're not giving that. I know we've heard about it working like very, very quickly in one day for some dogs and not for others. And I think it depends on the individual quite a lot of the time, doesn't it? How do you pick apart when that has been something that's worked? It must be quite difficult, because you're never going to give it in isolation to other things like management and changing environments and whatever you might be doing in your BMod world that you're in. So it must be quite tricky to pull anything apart sometimes. And you just view it maybe as it's a whole thing, a holistic approach that works.
So I would say for me, it depends on the case in terms of how we kind of plan it, how strategic we are in what we introduce and when for that reason. So some cases we, like the owner and I would agree that we're going to do this a little bit step by step for exactly that reason, so that we know what's working when and what's having an impact. Whereas others, depending on the problem and the severity and all the rest of it, we might just say we need to throw everything at this straight away because this is potentially a rehoming situation or, you know, worse. So there's no time to mess around with, let's see what's working. I don't care at that point. Just throw everything at it and hopefully put it all together and it will work. And we can then unpick it, maybe, like we said, let the Adaptil wear off, and we unpick it actually at the other end once we've got where we want to be, and we unpick it at that point. But for example, a recent case of mine is a vet herself, so that's always the dream team, isn't it? Like, and she got a physio out to assess her dog, and there was sort of question mark pain. So because we really needed to know whether the pain trial was effective or impacting its behaviour, we kind of put everything else product-wise or, without going into too much detail, we put management in place and then just did this pain trial and focused on that for a while she got a few physio appointments under her belt and could really observe the dog and get a really good idea of what the pain trial on its own was impacting in terms of the behaviour. And then on the back of that, we kind of did that as a priority first. And then on the back of that, we started having in more behaviour modification type stuff. So yeah, it's a really good question. And I think most of my answers in anything like this is always, it depends. But in the kind of less intense situations, I would generally discuss product options with owners and what they all are, and make sure they're aware of what's evidence-based as well, because you know, they can walk into a shop and be like, well, what do you go for and what is all this? So I kind of give them the information at the start, and then we'll be a bit more methodical about it depending on that dog's needs.
Brilliant. You're just nodding in agreement, Emma, there. You're like, yep, that's a great answer.
I am, but I'm going to jump in.
Go on, go.
Absolutely. I think everything has got to be evidence-based these days. You know, no vet in the land is going to start suddenly doing something that doesn't have good research behind it and doesn't have that strong evidence base. And this is where, you know, Adaptil really is the market leader, because we have done 25 clinical trials. You know, some of those have been placebo controlled clinical trials, and all of the research that we've done and we've had published in peer-reviewed journals. So for anyone who's not so familiar with what peer-reviewed journals means, that means that they've gone through a really strict review program by other scientists to ensure that the science is good and that the results are actually what we say they are. So Adaptil has got a range of these clinical journals, you know, and publications on the main behavior problems that most owners will encounter. So if you're thinking about, I don't know, probably separation anxiety, that's a biggie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 45% of dogs will actually suffer from separation anxiety. You know, and we have got some actual evidence that shows that 91% of dogs that had a presence of a diffuser had a reduction in that behavior. This is obviously, you know, we're not saying plug it in, boom, mic drop, everything's done. The work here is done. That's so simple. It's often about a desensitization program alongside, or counter conditioning. But, you know, there's many different avenues and evidence where Adaptil has been clinically proven to work, you know, and whether that be training, supporting puppies through that initial theft from their mum. Oh, aren't we naughty, us dog owners, stealing puppies off their mummy and bringing them home, kidnapping them effectively, the most stressful point in their life.
Yeah.
You know, and we can mimic what mum was producing, that reassuring thing, and add that to our household when we get a new puppy, and it's so much more reassuring for them, and can help them settle much more quickly. You know, sort of 80% less howling in pups when we're using Adaptil. What owner doesn't want that?
Yeah, and the other thing to bring that in, the other thing I would say about use in puppies is that, like, I've used it with the puppies I've brought home. But you don't, like, it's harder to almost observe efficacy in those situations,
of course,
because you don't know what they'd have been like without it.
Yeah.
But I just always see it as, again, if I can support that puppy to be the best version of itself it can be, why would I not? Yeah, that's the way I see it with puppy stuff and the more preventative stuff.
It's also kind of bizarre when you see everything we know about developmental stages of puppies now, like that, bring a puppy home at 8 weeks seems a bit bizarre the more we learn about it, you know, because it's a really sensitive period of their lives, you know, right between that 7 and 9 week sort of stage is really, really difficult for them. So yeah, I think anything we can do to help, if we are going to be bringing puppies home at that sort of time, it's got to be a good thing.
Well,
I think that's a whole other, I was going to say, it's a whole other podcast topic, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Breeders are sort of holding on rehome until 10-12 weeks for that reason, but yeah, whole nother topic.
Yes.
my pessimistic head goes straight to some places I'd want the puppy out sooner. Straight out. But yeah, you're right, that's a whole nother podcast. I won't go there.
So Emma, is your vision for the future that every vet has Adaptil pumping out 24 hours a day inside the practice? Like, I imagine like walking in there and it just being full of I know it doesn't smoke, but, you know, like stars in your eyes type sort of thing as you walk through there. Or like, do vets do that? That's a good question. Like, do vets use it in practice a lot? Are they plugged up and plugged in and got?
The Bristol ones do.
Yeah, well, I bet they do.
Yeah. I mean, it is a really
Espresso,
great
Rosie.
question. Yes, I mean, some of the more behaviour aware practices will use Adaptil in practice. Not every practice in the land is doing that. And really, when you think about how stressful it is for a dog walking into practice, you know, the slippy floor, the strong smells, the fear pheromones that have probably been left on the floor from the dogs in the waiting room, all the barking, etc., separation from your owner, it begs the question why it wouldn't be something that is used in every.
There might be a cat staring at them.
Evil cats. Oh, sorry. But certainly Adaptil have got ways to support practices who want to use pheromones in-house. You know, we have special offers to make it more affordable for them, because we appreciate that obviously there's a cost with these products. And for those that are, they will very often notice it, because you'll probably see a diffuser plugged in by the weighing scales. Or you may even see one of our very cool sort of plug surrounds. It's either got a cat or a dog silhouette, which you can put around your plug socket to show that they are using Feliway or Adaptil in practice. There are PACTs as well, that you may see some posters on the wall. So when you're going in to check in at the practice, you might spot some of these around and about, but mainly keep an eye in the waiting area to see if there is anything plugged in. But not every practice does, and I think, you know, cost is and awareness are the main challenges there, really.
And probably noticing when it's running out. Someone needs to
someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. I like the idea though of you know, the practice having a nice calming whiff, and that would be the one that the dog would choose to go to, like Tesco's, you know, pumping out the smell of the bakery. You're like, oh yeah, I want to go in there actually.
Yeah.
Our local Tesco's had a better idea. They put a Greggs inside.
Oh, well,
just inside the door. Yeah,
that'll get you in.
Yeah. The other thing that I think a lot of people aren't aware of is that none of these kind of pheromone products have a scent to them, so we can't smell them. But it also means that if you've got a multi-species household, like the Adaptil dog one is only going to be picked up by the dogs. Dogs are the only species that have got the receptors to pick that up, and cats are the only species that have got the receptor to pick up the Feliway cat pheromone. So yeah, just I thought that was good to throw in, because people worry that if they've got the cat they can't use Adaptil, or like in the vet practice they could have both pumping out.
Yeah, very, very good point.
Because you work with we work with cats and rabbits as well, don't you, Rosie?
Yeah, I do. So I guess that's another reason that classes kind of ended up fizzling out a bit, is because I've fit in quite a lot of cats and the occasional rabbit. I don't get as many rabbit referrals as I'd like, really, and I hope that's not because I'm rubbish at working with rabbits.
No way.
I think it's just that rabbits get a really rough deal. A lot of the time they are still, you know, the PDSA poor report shows that there's still quite a lot of welfare concerns when it comes to how people keep rabbits, and they're often still down the bottom of the garden and don't cause an issue for the owner, so therefore why would they need to ring people like me? But yeah, occasionally you get, you know, house bunnies that are causing a bit of havoc, or just really it's the savvy bunny owners actually that recognize that there's something going on emotionally with their rabbit, you know, not necessarily just that it's a problem to them. I think that's true for cats to an extent as well. Like we will often, the cases that I get referred are often cats that the problem is a problem to the owner, as opposed to let's give you an example of a multi-cat household where actually if I were to observe it, I'd say there's welfare concerns that the owner probably hasn't picked up on, because the cats are all good at hiding and it's trying desperately to avoid each other and avoid crossing paths, and it's not been recognised because it's not a problem for the owner. But when the cat's spraying all over their new sofas, it's going to be a problem for the owner.
Do you find that you sometimes get called in to work with a dog, and as we talked about earlier, quite often when people have a dog, they might have another species in their house, and then you get to give advice about the other species whilst you're there, like how you might improve some things. Maybe the dog's chasing the rabbit or giving the rabbit a hard time.
Always. And again, if we go back to the jigsaw puzzle, like one of the questions that most of us would ask in our history taking is who lives here and what other animals live here. And nearly always the owner will say to me, oh yeah, there's a cat as well, it just lives upstairs because the dog but trying to disregard that instantly as that's not why I've called you in, but it's going to be part of the dog's arousal levels, knowing that the cat's creeping down the stairs and is trying to do the mad rush out the door. So yeah, it's all about fitting that jigsaw puzzle piece. So we have to cover it, and we have to deal with it from the cat's welfare point of view, but also for dealing with the problem the owner's called me in on with the dog, because it all pieces together, doesn't it?
I guess that's really nice having you as a package though, because you can do that if you've been called in for the dog. But what about trainers that might be listening to this, that it's not their species, they're very dog focused? Could they get you in to help? Like, are you able to do remote sessions for cats, for rabbits, or what advice would you give to them? What could they be looking out for to make some small improvements to these species that they don't specialize in, without maybe working in an area that they should be referring on?
I think there is really easy generic advice or knowledge that dog trainers could go in with, knowing about cats and rabbits specifically. So cats, the general rules are they need lots of hiding places and they need lots of high places to get up to, particularly when there's a predator living in their home, which is what happens when we have dogs and cats living together. We need to make sure, same rule for me as introducing a new dog or a puppy into a household that's already got a dog existing there. So with cats and dogs, the introduction is super important. So if we can get that right, so there's no opportunity from day one for chasing or arousal in response to the cat. And if we can just make sure that we've got management and barriers in place so that the dog and cat can live harmoniously when we're not actively teaching the dog to be calm around the cat, for example. So that would be generic advice for dogs and cats in the home. And then rabbits, again, we need to remember are proper prey animals. So cats are classed as both a predator and a prey species, so we need to look at them from both their needs being met. Whereas rabbits obviously are still complete prey animals, so they hate being picked up. They need to always be kept in pairs, and really, again, you'd want a really savvy dog and rabbit owner for them to be coexisting with the rabbit, genuinely comfortable with that. And don't get me wrong, you can get very lovely dog-rabbit relationships, but a lot of the time the owner thinks they've got a nice relationship and the rabbit's actually freezing in fear a lot of the time, as opposed to actively seeking interaction from the dog. But bunnies living in pairs and not having enough space are probably the two biggest issues I see. And that would be quite hard for someone who's been called in to a dog or a puppy and go, why is your rabbit on its own? So I don't think that's the place to address that. But I do think it's the place for vet staff to address it, though, if they bring a rabbit in on its own. I think they should be addressing that, because that is actually as big a welfare concern as if they weren't feeding it enough food. Like, we know from studies of rabbits that they seek out companionship equal to seeking out food, for like, that is how much they need it.
It goes with the territory of being prey, doesn't it? Right. Safer in numbers. And sorry, I'm sure you're amazing at your job, and it's not that you're rubbish, it's that people don't care enough to pick up the phone.
Well, they're not noticing.
I think they also, to be fair, there are some really amazing rabbit savvy vets who also specialize in rabbit behavior, that have written all the textbooks about rabbit behavior, and I'd like to think they are fully booked with behavior consults. So I think if your name is out there, known as being a rabbit behaviourist, you're going to be a bit busier than I am.
let's go with that. But yeah, I think I'm with you. Rabbits get a hard deal. Bless them. Especially having lived with a house rabbit. We had a house rabbit when we first got together, me and Jay, and she was brilliant. Like same personality, you know, funny, house trained, just amazing. So yeah, they do get forgotten.
They do, and I feel bad knowing what I know now, and I'm sure we can all relate to this with all the information we know about behaviour now. But growing up, I had a single rabbit out in the, and I loved it very much. It wasn't just dumped out in the garden, but you know, I wish I had a little friend for it now in hindsight.
Yeah, you're right. Many of us can relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
Who are you sharing your life with at the moment then, Rosie? What animals have you got?
I've got 2 Labradors, 2 cats, no rabbits. I've got chickens and sheep, but no rabbits. Yeah.
I enjoy, you did quite a lot of stories and sharing when you first, I don't know which dog it was, sorry for forgive me, but I follow you on social media and I watch their journeys and you kind of really talked about the real stuff as well, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I feel like I've gone a bit off social media. I think we all have these phases, don't we? But yeah, I can be really proactive on there and share loads of it, and then I feel a bit like I'm oversharing.
No,
and I get the fear of what you know, the judgment that nobody's judged me directly, but they must all be judging me, obviously.
Yeah,
and then you get the fear and you stop and you go, oh, just give it a rest for a bit. People must be sick of it. But no, I need to be a bit more proactive. It's time as well, and the thought, like, just the headspace it takes to just get. It sounds stupid because you're just videoing. That's the thing with my social media. It very much is just videoing normal life anyway. But even the uploading, I haven't got time for it.
yeah, it can be time consuming, but I think you're a really good voice for good, and it'd be good to see you doing more stuff.
Oh, thank you. Maybe that's a kick up the bum I need.
Consider yourself positively reinforced.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we're all about. Conscious of the time, just one final question, if I may. We talked a lot about sort of like providing well-being for our animals, either through, you know, visiting with a CAB or providing some lovely pheromones in the air for them to help relax them. And what about well-being within the, you know, being a behaviourist? Because it's a tough job, you know. We talked about this a lot with vets before as well. I mean, I'm not asking you to, you know, to have an answer for any of this sort of stuff, Rosie, but what do you do yourself? You know, how do you look after your own well-being within that? Because it can be a tough job.
Yeah.
You take on some cases, you know, you might wake up in the middle of the night thinking about a certain dog or a rabbit. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important aspect, and I'm no shame in saying I hit burnout a couple of years ago, complete burnout, and had to stop, and took probably a year out, more or less, having the odd case that I like the sound of thing quiet and thought I can cope with this one, and just ticked along. But I was full time working as a behaviourist and working all hours under the sun. I was working, I had 2 young kids at the time, 7 days a week till 10 o'clock at night, you know, writing reports at midnight. It was stupid, but I just found it really hard to say no. You know what it's like. You get the desperate emails come through, your diary's already full, so you squeeze them. Like, that's how it went. And so at the time, I wasn't sure I'd ever come back from it, but I guess that's what burnout is. But that year was really important for me to be able to reflect back on how unsustainable that was. And yeah, so since coming back, I've just been much more careful about what I book in my diary. I'm better at saying no. I'm better at, you know, using the network of CABs that we've got in the area. And I'll never say just no to someone. I'll obviously recommend someone else to help them. I don't book, you know, before my diary was booked up for 5 months in advance solid, whereas now I basically do it a month at a time. So I just say I'm booked up for this month. I'm not yet booking in for the next month. If you want to wait, that's fine. If not, you can speak to my colleagues. They might be able to see you sooner, but otherwise I'll be in touch to book in the next month. And I can then plan my diary. I plan in like diary time for the follow-up emails that are essays sometimes, aren't they?
Yeah.
To read them, absorb them, reply appropriately. Like, it all takes time and brain space. So I schedule all that into my diary now. And yeah, much better about having, so I don't, there's nothing other than work, like being better at my diary. There's nothing that I do personally to relax. Just having a work-life balance is get my nails done every few weeks. That's my treat.
I have been eyeing them up, actually. They're very nice.
Thank you.
The little, you know, lots of gesticulating.
I was a chronic stress nail biter.
Yeah, I am too. Mine are awful.
Get your nails done now.
Oh, well, you're right. I'll do that.
So you were saying that you were referred. I mean, I'm always talking about this. Like when we were in Southampton and we were at capacity and we couldn't take on more clients. To have great people you can refer to, it's so. We want our trainers to be confident that a good trainer has moved into the area. We don't want them. I understand that if you've got bills and things to pay, sometimes that worry does come in. I don't want to dismiss that, but ultimately, collaborating, meeting up and seeing if you can do something together would be a great approach. Do you find that now you're able to maybe see a client for the first time and think of the training aspects that might be implemented by an animal training instructor so that you can then maybe see another client?
Yeah, I've never done that in terms of like implementing my behaviour modification program, but I used to be that person. So I used to work for a veterinary behaviourist and do their what's the ABT? What's that?
ABT, animal behaviour clinician. Yeah,
one of them.
Like the rehab trainer.
Yeah, so I was doing the rehab work. So I know it can work brilliantly because I used to do that. But I personally like the satisfaction of seeing a case through. But for things like scent work, which I mean, what dog doesn't that benefit? Then, you know, I've got people in Bristol that I'll give details out for extra bits like that would work really nicely alongside the specifics of the behaviour modification I'll work through with them. But yeah, so I think there's no right or wrong way to doing that at all, is there? It's just up to individual preferences.
Excellent.
Fabulous. Well, I think all that remains to be said is thank you so much for coming.
We didn't address the dog in the room.
Oh yeah,
I know we should. And anyone
listeners won't know what we're talking about, but we'll pop a picture up for you.
Yeah. I think we should actually do the photo with Abby as the dog.
Yes.
Does the dog move, Abby, or is it you?
Oh, it's blinking.
I'm just oh no, it does talk when I talk.
Oh, it does talk. Oh, there we go.
Have you got arms?
See. Oh no, no arms, just mouth and
no arm. Okay, so you can smile.
A little head bob. Yeah.
Smile for a photo. Okay, should we all do a photo then? That would be lovely. Okay, right. 3, 2, 1, smile. Lovely.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you, Emma, obviously at DogX. Rosie, you coming to DogX?
Do you know what? Another gripe of mine, if I'm going to gripe, is that all these things were at weekends, and my work-life balance means weekends are for me.
Oh,
and I know conferences don't really count as work, but they do in terms of like, you know, family time and stuff. So I feel like
kids. Bring the kids.
You haven't met my kids.
Or don't bring the kids and drink the Prosecco.
Yeah, that's better.
Bring your 17 vet mates with you as well, and then we could sell all the tickets on this, the remaining tickets.
Yeah, just to the Bristol crew.
Yeah, that's it. But I do feel like as vets and behaviourists are much better about talking about mental health and looking after ourselves. But all of those talks happen on weekends.
I know. Well, we'll see what we can do for you.
Next year, on Monday and Tuesday, I'm there.
Okay. And I will be peddling our book, so just so you know, it'll be there on the bookstall.
Do the assemble.
Avengers
Assemble. Get you back.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get you back on.
Yes. Cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma, as well. It's
my pleasure. Thanks for having us.
No problem.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.